Hey everybody, what's up? I'm here with Stan Cotey from Fender, and we're talking about the new Hammertone series of pedals from Fender. Stan, these things are awesome, man.
Thanks, Don. Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm really, really excited about this.
Yeah, me too, man. Thanks so much for being here, Stan. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
I'm stunned. I really am. And I've known you long enough that I can hear your DNA in these pedals, man. These are great.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, these were a side hustle, but they're fun for sure. And it's been a huge labor of love to get these out. And you know, doing 9 at a crack was pretty good. But
yeah, that's a big goal. But you know what's great about them is that they're single purpose. You know, and it's just plug them in and they sound good. You know, it's got a really old school kind of aesthetic to it from that standpoint. You know.
We still have this idea that we have people that are just learning to play guitar, and then people like you or me that have been playing guitar for too many decades. And so it's interesting when you try to find something that'll work for people in all of those spectrums. And so our CEO, Andy, also is a big fan of simplicity and kind of power, like having powerful things in simple packages.
Right.
And so he was some of the genesis of this. And then just pulling together things that are like the single purpose thing, you know, a decent number of sounds in a small rugged package, and just keep it easy to use. And
yeah, super reliable. Golly, man, well made, well designed.
Yeah, drop it, don't worry about it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And a small enclosure so you can, you know, fill up your pedal board with them.
Yeah,
right?
My favorite, top mounted jacks.
Yeah, well, exactly. And all the same power supply, right?
Yeah, all the same power supply.
So I mean, that's pretty amazing. You've got a lot of things, you know, that are in common with these pedals, but they're each extremely unique and very individual. I was, as I looked at them, I went, okay, I think I know what they do. The more I started turning the knobs, I went, wow, these do a lot more than I expected. I mean, really, seriously, man. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. That's hard too, because things can sound good and also bad. Right, and if you give something a huge range, a lot of times there's bad areas you can get into. So you kind of want to curate a little bit and make sure that there are spots that, like some of these you can get into like, whoa, it's really bright or something. But mostly we were trying to find enough range where you could pull, you know, on the flanger you could pull chorusy sounds out, or like swooshy flange sounds, or vibrato-y things or whatever. So it's got some corners it can get into, but not so far that you get lost and make a bad sound and go, ah.
Yeah. I've said that about some gear before. It's like, well, that's a great pedal, but it's easy to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, these are not. You really can't get yourself in trouble, man. You just kind of set them up and go. And if it's a little too much of this or not enough of that, you know, it's right there.
Yeah, and we still wanted to stick with the idea of like we're not doing MIDI and presets and things like that. There's no layers to them. There's no displays. Everything is just one knob, one function. And we really did work to kind of keep it down to 3 or 4 knobs and a switch or 2 or something, and just keep it really simple.
Yeah, boy, you did, man. Succeeded. Nice stuff.
Awesome.
Nice stuff. So we got the Fuzz here.
Yeah. So this is a silicon transistor-based Fuzz. It's kind of like the Pelt. The engine, the core of this is similar to the Pelt Fuzz. We were talking a little beforehand, but it's interesting to make a Fuzz out of transistors, germanium or silicon. The characteristic of the transistor matters a lot. And so tiny little variances in the transistors make fairly huge variances in how the Fuzz sounds. And there are classic 60s Fuzzes where you go like, wow, this is a really great one, and this is a not so great one. And a lot of times it's down to just this transistor is happy and this one is less so.
Wow.
So trying to make a Fuzz that is repeatable, and with transistors that are these organic kind of things was fun. And so, and I think we've got to a place where these are all pretty consistent, pretty reliable between them.
Yeah, so you solved the problem.
Well,
that sounds like something you'd do, man.
Yeah, thanks. Well, and others have too, but this is this has got its spin on it.
Yeah, cool. So quickly, tone, fuzz, level, and an octave switch.
And an octave switch, very straightforward.
Yeah, can't go wrong. Let's let me play it, man. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Awesome. You can hear it get a little splatty when you really dig into it.
Yeah.
I like this because this pedal can go from being decently clean, should be reasonably clean now.
Okay, let's hear that.
Yeah. Where it's almost amp-like in a way. It's definitely not super nonlinear like you would expect a Fuzz. The Pelt does that too. It gets pretty clean on its low end range. Yeah, kind of the 60s deal.
Yeah, that's great, man.
The tone control on this creates a mid-notch, and then it just kind of balances between the sides.
Oh,
and a lot of
interesting.
classic fuzzes do that. That's kind of
Yeah.
a normal thing, and I think when a lot of people step on a fuzz, they kind of expect to hear that.
Yeah.
So this thing does
Yeah.
the same thing. So it can go from like very bassy
Yeah.
to very bright. And so it just kind of rocks between those two worlds, and there's a
Yeah.
big mid scoop in between
Yeah.
them. Yeah, and then the octave
of course,
switch.
The octave, yeah. Well, here.
Yeah, you got some of the ring modulated stuff going in there.
Yeah, yeah, it gets really splatty. I mean, above the 12th fret, of course, the harmonic structure's a little different, and then below that, it's like that's where you get all the craziness.
Yeah. And I love all the playing a single note and then sneaking another note in, and it gets all chaotic for a second.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very straightforward and again pretty easy to use.
Man, super responsive though. Golly, it sounds good, man.
Cool. Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, so we saw the fuzz. Now here's the rest of the Overdrive distortion family.
Yep. Yeah, so there are three. There's an overdrive, which I'll come back to. There's a distortion pedal and the metal pedal. And the distortion and metal are kind of related to each other. And they're also both kind of related to the pugilist and the full moon. So the distortion is sort of about half of a pugilist. It's one of the sections, slightly revoiced. There's a little more tone control with it. And then this is a higher gain, more aggressive version of it. And then the overdrive, for us, the overdrive was fun. We didn't do an overdrive in the first range of pedals. We did, almost 30 pedals. And I didn't touch an overdrive because, to me, that's one of those things. We didn't have anything to say, or I didn't have anything to say in that moment. And I didn't want to do just a clone or a copy of something. When it came time to do an overdrive, because it was sorely lacking in the line, to me, the difference is also, so an overdrive to me is a lighter character of distortion. A distortion pedal more dominates your sound, is it applies a character to your tone. An overdrive kind of hitches a ride and just makes your tone kind of bigger, but it's more like it has the character of your guitar. A lot of overdrives, like classic overdrives, leak a little bit of clean signal through, so you still hear a lot of the character of like the clean pick attack and things. Distortion pedals, that transient tends to get compressed and flattened with the distortion.
Right.
Overdrives have this clean path, so it kind of pops on through. This circuit does that, has a little clean leakage that occurs. Sometimes if you play an overdrive with a really loud guitar, like something with humbuckers, the clean character of the humbuckers comes through way louder than the distortion. And so overdrive pedals oftentimes work better with lower output pickups because it gets that more in kind of proportion.
Yeah.
When you play a louder humbucker thing, all of a sudden the clean thing gets really big. So I put a soft clip stage in after all of the tone shaping stuff in here, so that if you do play something with humbuckers, the soft clip kind of rounds it off, so it keeps the proportion about the same. So that's a unique thing about this. And then it has a really fun mid boost that's ahead of the gain.
Yeah.
So it's like having a mid-range pedal, boost in front.
Yeah, right. I noticed that. And that, and again, that's like, how do you want to sit in the mix? That, to me, that's what that knob is. It's like, where do you want to sit in the mix?
Yeah. And if you start with a guitar with single coil pickups and you want to fatten up a little bit too, that's a useful thing. Sometimes if you're playing something girthier or bigger, maybe kind of roll it back a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, and still get the fullness of everything, but not have it be so so present. And then there's, again, with guitar, it's a mid-range instrument. So you're always trying to work on where it is in the mids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is great. Again, man, just like a simple design, but what a nice touch, man.
Oh, thank you.
What a nice touch. Okay, well let's hear it.
Yeah,
man.
so we're starting. So the mids are off in this case.
Okay.
So it's kind of a middle gain kind of setting.
Yeah.
And you can hear, like when you play chords with the higher gain setting, you almost hear two things going on. You hear like a little bit of a cleaner chord riding along, and then like a heavier distortion kind of piggybacking along, which is what we were trying for with the pugilist, of the idea of the two distortions, of having a cleaner thing happen. So this kind of does that same thing.
Yeah, sort of does it automatically.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
And that's interesting too, because the character, as you turn the gain up, certainly the mid thing, but even as you turn the gain up, the character of the whole pedal changes.
Yeah.
Which is nice, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, we're trying for a bunch of sounds, but a pretty simple interface, a pretty simple way to get there.
Yeah, yeah, and again, can't really get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Maybe with your mom.
Too loud. Stan, you're so loud. So yeah, the distortion, man, definitely a different character. I mean, I can hear the hard clipping sort of sound to it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely more of a crunch tone kind of thing going on, and it gets subtle when you pull the gain back. It'll get a little cleaner, but really, I think its reason to exist is like rock crunch tones.
Yeah, big low end too, man. Really nice.
Yeah, it's like we've got it backed off here, but there's a lot more gas in the tank.
Nice.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wide open. We talked about it a little before, but these have trim pots inside also. And so there's a trim pot that adjusts the mid-range, where you can put a mid-scoop in, or a mid-bump if you want.
Nice.
And there's also a trim pot that adjusts how much super high end is present, which like on a brighter amp, it might be a little fizzy. You can kind of roll it back.
Right. Well, like on this amp, so we had the bright switch on, so now the bright switch is actually off.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to adjust for that, kind of compensate internally, you get in there and find your spot on the.
Spot on.
Smart. You're so smart, Stan.
Yeah, my mom, she'd be proud.
All right, so now to the family of delays. We were talking about just some of the range of sounds available and the differences between the two.
Yeah.
So this is more, this let me see, so we've got a pattern switch on this?
Yeah, so this is a space delay, and it kind of leans towards like old school tape delays that have multiple heads.
Oh, all right.
So what the pattern switch does is it gives you either just a single head, so a single repeat bump bump, or two different patterns of multiple heads. And so it's like da-da-da or dun-da-da. And so there's different rhythmic things. And that kind of stuff is really fun with shorter delay times, like 300 milliseconds-ish, because it almost gets into a space where it behaves like a reverb, but it's not as dense as a reverb.
Yeah.
So for playing rhythm and things, it's kind of, because you get a little bit of the spaciousness, like the thing that fills out a little bit, but without completely overwhelming.
Yeah, without the wash.
Yeah.
And this has got a nice tone, and it sort of stays out of the way in a very nice way too, you know.
Yeah, it's not a pristine, perfect delay. It doesn't have all the high end in the world or whatever. It kind of intentionally. You wanted to kind of shape it to where it fits in with, we were talking about guitar as a mid-range instrument. So you want to kind of stay in that space.
Definitely in that zone. Let's hear it, and then I'll come back.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So there's modulation on that, obviously.
Yeah. And we were talking about that. So when we first clicked it on, the modulation was a bit heavy, and you were like, oh, let me fix this.
Yeah.
Super easy fix. I had no idea. I was expecting 4 screws on the back. Well, here, you can probably just
here
show
we
with
go.
that.
So single screw on the back. So you just loosen it. The screw stays with the back cover, which is cool, so you won't lose it.
Yeah.
And then inside, there are 2 trim pots. These little blue trim pots. So in the case of the delays, they control speed and depth of the modulation. And then there's a switch to switch the modulation on or off. And yeah, when we first pulled it out of the box, it was really kind of seasick.
Yeah, right. So it's super easy fix. Like you even said, like, on the gig, you know, if you just wanted to change it for some reason.
Yeah. We mentioned earlier the distortion and the overdrive, the metal pedal have those same trim pots for mid-range or top end, things like that. Yeah. And it just goes back together again.
Golly, super cool.
Yeah. I didn't want to try to fit 6 knobs in a small pedal and make them super, super tiny. And so I thought there might be some things that you could just kind of tuck out of the way. They're easy enough to get to if you want to get to them.
Right, but set and forget for the most part.
Yeah, and in the heat of the battle, as it were, just to have the things that are really, really germane sitting right on top.
Yeah, which is great, man. Both of these delays, okay, my favorite thing, you're going to have to go there. We're going to have to go to that little, I call it, it's like the forever dusk setting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you should be there.
Okay, we're there.
And these delays, the feedback can run away as well. So you can do that kind of stuff.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so the difference between the two is we've got a pattern switch on this one, and on this one we've got a type switch. So these are 3 different delay sounds.
Yeah, there's like a digital delay, which is straight and pure and clean. There's an analog delay, and then there's a tape model that gets a little grungier, has a little more distortion built in, loses a little top and bottom end.
Yeah.
So 3 different characters of delays.
Yeah, so really I mean, the same delay but different.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And whether you're just starting out with pedals or whether you've got a pretty elaborate board or something, we wanted this to be easy enough for a beginner to find their way through, but rugged enough and hopefully good sounding enough to where a pro that just wants a single, just give me an extra delay, something I can just slap or something like that.
Set it where you want to set it. And just, and again, man, nice form factor, good size, really small.
I love that we were able to reuse these knobs. These knobs came from the 60s, and I think they were first on some of the solid state amps, the weird solid state amps of the 60s, but the Fender blender. So we started, and I'm a kind of a Fender blender fan. I have an old one, and I know I have a couple of buddies who are into them as well. And so when we were looking at the industrial design, we're like, let's reuse those knobs.
All right, Stan. So next we have the flanger and chorus, sort of the modulation family. Yeah, good stuff, man. This was the one in particular that I played the flanger. It was I went, wait a minute, this thing does way more than it ought to be doing.
Yeah.
Really gets a lot of great sounds.
There's so many cool things you can do with flangers, and the Andy Summers thing of a lot of people think they hear chorus with his earlier stuff, but it wasn't. It was a flanger.
Right.
So flanging isn't always about jet airplanes, but it can be.
Yeah, it sure can be, exactly. So all right, well, let's give it a listen. So what kind of sound do we have dialed up?
Yeah, so this is a high resonance, which really gets the peaks where you really hear the swoosh part of it. It's a deep depth, so the modulation goes the full range, and pretty slow at the rate. So this is, to me, this is the classic jet airplane flange.
Yeah.
And you can back the resonance down and speed it up a little bit, and it gets chorusy.
Yeah, a lot more watery that way. Nice,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, more liquid.
Yeah.
Watery. I guess water's liquid. Yeah. So far we've been hearing this in the negative mode where you really hear the peaks.
Yeah.
But I can flip it over. So positive and negative flanging, it's whether the flange signal is added or subtracted from the main guitar signal. So here's the difference. So you really hear the depth. It gets a lot deeper.
Yeah, it's like a harmonic series almost, and then you kind of hear more like a pulsing sound.
Yeah.
With the other one, that's great, man.
Yeah.
Cool. So here's the chorus.
Yeah.
Another pedal that does a lot. Oh my gosh, I was really astounded at you. It goes full wet, full dry.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
So you can get just the classic vibrato sounds as well as like the chorusy kinds of things.
Yeah. So we're set for like a vibrato sound now, right? Yeah.
So you can get to full wet where it's just the pitch shifted thing.
Right.
And when you get into more of the 50-50 space, you get into more of the classic kind of chorus sounds. And this chorus has 3 modes to it also. The digital pedals, I tried to put more things under the hood than just the one obvious sound.
Yeah.
So this has a 1-voice chorus, a 2-voice choruses where it's 2 that are separately tuning, and a 4-voice chorus.
Oh, nice. So it really thickens it up then.
Yeah, it's like 4 copies of yourself playing along.
Sure.
These use a thing called quadrature, where instead of all modulating up and down at the same time, they go in cycles. So they all kind of like a little family of ducklings walking along. So they're all kind of doing that as they go. So it helps because they detune against each other. And so some of the thick sounds, like the 4-voice stuff, gets pretty thick.
Yeah.
But because there's 4 voices trailing along, you don't hear so much like the beat or the pulse of it. It's just this widening.
Right, it's just nice and fat and wide. Now, interesting, the tone switch.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah, the tone switch, I didn't want to take top end off having a switch. Again, trying to keep it to just a few knobs and a couple of switches. What this tone switch does is remove a lot of the low mids, which a lot of times with coursing, with stuff that gets detuned, it creates a lot of mud down there.
Yeah.
So this brings a lot of clarity, especially the chordal parts.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll do the rush chord.
There you go.
So we can hear that.
So you hear kind of the low mids get out of the way, and you hear the detuning more.
Exactly. And you hear the voices individually better too. You know, of the chord, the notes.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
And that works well in the single voice, double voice mode also.
Yeah. All right, and last but not least, the reverb. Very nice indeed, man. Damping control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Just whether you make it hang around and be bright in your face, or whether you make it just kind of tail away softly. It's like it tiptoes quietly out of the room.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It changes the tail of it as much as anything, you know. And and to be clear, we've turned the reverb off of the amp.
Right.
So
what you're hearing is just this.
Just the pedal.
Yeah, there's 3 modes in here. So there's a hall, which is big and spacious.
Yeah.
There's a room, which is less dense and a little smaller, maybe better for rhythm parts. And there's a plate, and the plate is more kind of focused sounding, where it takes on more of the tonal qualities. The hall thing is fun for like big spacious chordal things.
Yeah.
I like the room for more rhythm settings because it kind of doesn't get in your way a lot. And the plate for me is really fun for single note soloing, just because again it kind of adopts the tonality as it's going along.
Yeah, just kind of makes everything bigger. So this is the hall, right?
This is the hall,
that where we're at
yeah.
right now? It's okay. Thought a flat 5 might be nice.
I like it. Always welcome. Right, so we can look at some of the other sounds. So
Yeah.
the plate, here's the plate sound, and it gets a little more just kind of focused. And I turn the damping up, so you can hear it kind of gets rid of the highs.
Yeah.
Like if I turn it off. So somewhere in there is a setting that'll make this stuff get out of your way quick enough.
Yeah.
Depending on-
But still be big and spacious sounding.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is great.
And then the room I like a lot for shorter types of sounds. You can get almost slappy a little bit with the room, if that's a verb.
It is now. I think you just made one.
So R&B
Dang.
rhythm kind of
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
and things. Yeah.
Man, make a single chord really huge.
Yeah. So just trying for a bunch of sounds in a small little package.
Golly, and easy to get to.
Yeah.
Easy to get to. Man, Stan, golly, great work, man.
Thank you,
Great
Don.
work.
Thanks.
Nice stuff. Nice stuff. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank you. Thanks for
Appreciate
having
you.
me. These have been a
Appreciate you.
blast to work on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Blast to hear, blast to play. That's for sure.
Cool.
Man, thanks everybody for watching. Again, for Stan Cotey, Fender, Hammertone pedals. Thanks again. And if you have any questions about the Hammertone series, make sure to contact your Sweetwater sales engineer, or you can check us out online at sweetwater.com. Thanks.